two great ways that I've learned catching drummer off the rocks. Hi, my name's Roger Osborne, and in this video I have some more insights on catching these amazing fish. If you're finding this content helpful and it's helping you to improve your fishing, please make sure that you like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. Let's get started. The first way to fish for drummer from the rocks is by using a float and suspending your bait above the bottom. This is probably my most favourite way. I've caught so many fish this way. And if you've watched my last couple of videos, I've done a couple of videos on drummer fishing, but there's actually a lot more information that I want to give to you all around drummer. It's hard to fit it in one or two videos. So make sure you stay watching because there's lots more I want to impart in today's video. Now there's a lovely little wash just behind me, and I'm actually pretty blessed today because the sea is almost dead flat. And even though the sea's really flat and small, you can still see behind me that there's still white water. Although if you went to the beach, it's probably too small to surf. The waves are tiny. But there are a lot of places that you just cannot access unless the sea is flat. And I've caught a lot of really quality drummer fishing during the middle of the day like this in totally flat water because I can access areas that normally you'd never be able to access because it's just always waves crashing there. So that's why I'm in this particular spot right now. I'm just going to test this lovely little wash behind me. It's not very deep, so I'm actually only going to put my bait about 2 or 3 feet below the float, not very far at all because I don't want to get snagged. So I'm just going to go and see if I can find a couple of fish in this little gutter, and then I can see a cracking spot just to my left, just up there, that has got a lot of natural bait on the rocks. And like I said, normally you wouldn't be able to fish here. There'd just be big waves crashing all over the place. Now while I was getting ready, I've actually already thrown some burley into this little spot. I've taken the crust off one slice of bread, mushed it up, chucked it out. I had the crust at the end of the loaf, but I've also mushed up and crushed out as well. So when I chuck my bait in the water now, I've already put a bit of food out there to try and attract any drummer that may be there. Now the water's relatively clear, but when the slightly bigger waves come in, it does create a bit of foam and wash, so I still think that there'll be fish there. I think the seagulls are eating some of my bread that's washed out. My first cast, I didn't get any bites then. The water's relatively clear, so I'm actually going to try and cast a bit further away from me, just out towards this rock that is behind me, just to get a little bit of distance between me and any potential fish that might be able to see me because of the clear water. Even though the seas are flat and it's really enjoyable being down here, I've still got my life jacket on and I still have my spikes on my feet. The spikes are fantastic because they just give you, it doesn't matter if you're standing on slippery weed or whatever, you have amazing grip. And if a little wave washed over knee high, I've got fantastic stability. It just won't affect me at all. So I'm going to try tossing out a lot further because I know the burley would have been sweeping out there. So here comes a little wave now, but it's just going to wash up around my ankles and knees maybe. So my float is bobbing up and down, but I haven't seen any action. Normally when a drummer takes it, they hit it quite violently. Okay, so I've got a fish. Just got to tighten my drag a little bit. I don't know how big it is actually. It's come in underneath my feet. Oh, it's not that big. It's only a small one. I had cast my line right out the back. I wasn't getting any bites, so I pulled it into that wash when the wave just stirred up all the water. And I've caught a drummer. More of the same that I've been catching in the last couple of trips, but I'm sure I'm going to get a big one in a minute. So I just let this guy go. I think this spot's only worth 1 or 2 more casts and I'll move on to the next spot, actually. When I struck on that last drummer, my drag was a little bit loose and could feel the line peeling out, even though it was only a small fish. So I've actually tightened my drag right up, because if I hook a big fish, then it wouldn't help me. So I'm in that nice kind of foamy looking water there. It's the sort of spot that they hang out, but tide's going out, so they may have moved out of this gutter into the deeper water. There's nothing really happening here. I've only had about 4 casts, but my estimation is that this spot would be better when the tide was a bit higher. The tide's 2 hours late out at the moment. If this had a little bit more water in it, I think the fish would be up in here feeding. When I went to throw that little drummer out before, his gill got my finger. So yeah, when I went to throw him like that, the side of his gills just cut my finger as he went. Oh well. Moving on to the next spot. This spot here has a lot of natural food. You can see on the rocks around about me that there's an abundance of green weed. There's undoubtedly kanji a little bit lower down, and there's a beautiful, lovely little wash there with a little eddy going out. You can see in between this rock and the one over there, this little bay here, and this is a good vantage point to stand just here. You can see I've thrown some bread in the water and the seagulls are picking up the crumbs off the surface. It's a little bit deeper than the spot I just fished, so I'm going to need to adjust my float and fish a little bit deeper. Shortly in this video, I'm going to show you the other method that you can use when you're fishing for drummer off the rocks, which is also extremely effective. I prefer to use a float in shallow water. The other method I find better in deeper water. It's difficult to fish with a float in water deeper than about 4 or 5 meters because you've got to set your depth too low. I just want to chuck a bit more bread in there, and then I'm going to toss my bait in. Just got to let that float drift around and just locate where the fish are. Hopefully that bit of bread going in there has excited them a bit. No action yet. Okay. Oh, that was a good bite. Just got to get my float off the rocks. That was quite a good bite. It really took off. That float really flew under the water quite quickly. Just watching that float, waiting for a nice take. I'm drifting out a little bit into the deeper water. I may do better to actually set my float a bit deeper and let it drift out there. I've just got to go by trial and error. Well, I've just had something nibbling at it, but I don't think it's a drummer. I'm actually going to set the depth of my float a little bit more. I think I could go a little bit deeper. And I'm going to try putting on a prawn instead of some bread. I think it's worth persevering here for a minute. Okay, here we go. Just going to whack it out right about there, let it sink down under the float. Let my depth get under there so that I'm in a good position to potentially get a nice fish. Hello, it's already gone, sort of semi-gone under. Just waiting for a decent bite. I think that's the current that's carrying it at the moment. Just going to let a bit more line out. Let that float get out the back in that current, so it's... I've gone under. Oh, there's something small taking it. Not big. All right. I think my bait's gone. I'm going to risk going a bit closer to the rocks. I'm going to risk going a little bit closer to the rocks and risk getting snagged, because just trying to locate where the fish might be if they're here. Okay, well that's probably a drummer, but it's not very big, I don't think. Now that really is a baby. Look at that guy. I don't think I've had a big bite here. Look, great looking water, but this type of fishing is always prospecting and testing. I still think it's worth having a few more casts here, especially seeing as I've thrown a fair amount of bread in there. I think it's worthwhile doing it a little bit longer before I move on to another potential spot and fish the other way. Yeah, that was a little bit close to the edge then. Okay, so I've got a fish. How is it? It's another small one. I think it's the other one's brother. Taking me under a rock. Even this little guy still took me around a rock. So, just goes to show. Alrighty, so now I'm got to make a decision. What am I going to do next? Because there's lots of little ones in there. It looks fantastic. It's definitely, on its day, this would be an amazing spot for drummer. Possibly on a slightly higher tide. So what I may do now is I'm going to change my rig to the other method, which is a successful method, and perhaps by using that method in this spot I might have more success on larger fish. The second very popular method for fishing for drummer from the rocks is so simple, so easy. All you need is a little ball sinker and your hook. So it's quite simply a matter of actually just threading your ball sinker onto your line, as so. So I've just put the sinker on. It's down my line somewhere, and then I'm just going to tie on the hook. Doesn't take very long to rig up like this, literally seconds. And if you do get snagged up and you lose your rig, you're really rigged up, back rigged up again in, about 1 minute, really. Most often when people use this rig, they use pill prawns for bait or kanji, and some guys on the south coast here like to use crabs for bait. So it's really a very simple rig. I've got my sinker here. I'm just going to put my prawn on. I'm going to do a half hitch over the end to hold that prawn bait nicely in place. This is a 2.0 hook. So you can see there, you've got your little ball sinker with your bait. Now, the main baits people use, like I said, is actually prawn, kanji, crab, or some guys like to fish with bread baits like this as well and have good success fishing for drummer with a decent sized bread bait on the end of a ball sinker like this. So we're going to try in this spot. I've just been pulling out tiny baby little drummer. We'll see if I cast out there a bit deeper or just some different spots if something big is going to grab it. So now I'm just feeling for bites like I would, trying to keep in touch with my bait so I can feel it. It's not easy when you've got a really light bait and a tiny sinker, but if a decent fish takes it, you'll know about it. I've just moved up a little bit from that last spot because there's lots of baby fish there. It's super shallow down there. I've chucked a bit of bread in the water to burley, and I'm using this method where I'm fishing with a ball sinker on the hook with a prawn bait. So you can see this drummer is just, ouch, oh man, not again. Their gill plates are really quite sharp, so I've got to be careful when I grab it. I'm going to have a couple of flicks because when the waves hit there, it's really turbulent, but it's the sort of area where they could be feeding and I could hook a big one there, so I'll let this guy go. Just got to check my drag. It needs to be nice and tight. I'm just going to flick that just in the edge there. Just see if anything wants to have a sniff at it. Just floating around right on the edge. There's a big drummer that wants to take it. Yeah, something's having a bit of a go just now. Doesn't feel big though. Oops. There goes my sinker like a rocket. Flew out of the water. But I was really just at my feet, so got to be aware of that. All right, going to lob another prawn out there. Oops, don't want to get wet. Am I going to get a big bite down there? That's the question. Something small having a go. I don't want little ones. I feel like I'm stuck on the bottom, actually. So it looks like I've hooked Australia. So I'm actually going to man, even 20-pound line is really strong. That's not so exciting. The infamous cocky, or kelp fish, or rock cod, or whatever you want to call it. They say with these things that what you do is you get a pot of boiling water, put a rock in it, throw this fish in with the rock. After about half an hour, chuck the fish out and eat the rock. That's what they reckon. They often swallow the hook, these things. They're annoying. Oh, okay, have I got any weight in this one or not? Not really. Another one of our wrasse friends. Got bright colours on them. The fins down here are a really bright red, almost like blood. Well, it just goes to show you, it's a good example today in this video of, you know, like I did yesterday. Yesterday I fished a slightly different area to this. I landed 10 drummer. I took home 3 nice fish. And, but today I'm prospecting a different area using the 2 different methods that most people use for drummer. And I haven't actually got a take-home fish. Certainly pleasant out here. It's not cold, a little bit of a breeze. It's quite sunny. I'm happy to be fishing here because it's not dangerous. Even though, like, the sea's pretty flat, you can see undoubtedly that there's still a fair amount of wash even though the sea's flat. So I trust that you've learned a few things in this video. I look forward to seeing you very soon in the next one, either a beach fishing or rock fishing video. If it's been helpful, make sure that you subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you soon.